Do we?
We are recorded.
Okay, all right.
Yes, we're streaming live from YouTube.
Okay, we called meeting order at 1 p.m. The first item on the agenda is our committee presentation, and I'll turn over to our finance department.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robinson. This is actually what I was speaking of. I overlooked the item, but we, as you know, we have been taking a deep dive into the agency finances to determine a baseline for where we are now, given our agency's impacts from COVID and other factors that have impacted our agency's cash flow. We brought in a team from our sister organization at the Jacksonville Transit Authority to come in and do a financial assessment of our agency and our practices. And so we felt like this was very important. We have heard from many of you that you're interested in this information as well. And this is something that we pledged to do when we came in 2 months ago. So without further delay, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Ms. Keisha Dukes, who is the Assistant Vice President of Finance for the Jacksonville Transit Authority, so that she can talk to you in more detail about her assessment. There is a comprehensive version that will be sent out following this presentation today. She's going to go over the highlights of it. You'll have the comprehensive report this evening, and then as we come back together for governance and for the full board meeting, we'll be able to have some additional discussion around those items. So Ms. Dukes, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen and pull up the PowerPoint presentation. All right, can everyone see the screen? So as Ms. Malden mentioned, I am Keisha Dukes, the Assistant Vice President for the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. And we were asked to do a financial assessment. And during that assessment, I've kind of listed our scope of methodology. We were to develop and implement short and long-term finance strategies, also do an assessment on the overall financial health. We achieved this by interviewing the finance staff, reviewing policies and procedures, and reviewing the financial statements and current financial systems. So the focus was really on the 3 Ps, the people, processes, and the product. When you think about people, do you have the right people in the right positions with the right skill set? If those things are there, if you have the right people in the right positions, then that leads to effective processes. So we also looked at the overall processes for efficiency and effectiveness. And then we looked at the final product. And in finance, that's going to be your financial statements, your budgets, and your cash flow statements. And so really, when you think about it, having the right people in place creates these efficient processes which lead to accurate and transparent product, which is your financial statements. You want to make sure that they are accurate and that you have a clear level of transparency so that everyone knows where you are financially at any point in time. So I broke this down into people. On August 24th through the 25th, I had the pleasure of speaking with the finance staff at CAT in person. I talked to the interim chief financial officer, the senior accountant, the payroll accountant, and the accounts payable specialist, where they sat down and walked me through their day-to-day activities, showed me the different systems that they utilize, and talked about any pain points that they're currently having. The processes, again, I looked at the financial policies and procedures that are currently in place. I watched the staff perform tasks within the Munis system. I've observed board meetings and other staff meetings, and I've also reviewed prior external audit reports. All of these things gave me some insight into how the current processes are working and whether or not they're working efficiently. The product, again, looked at the financial statements, the budget documents, and the board financial packages. All of these things, like Ms. Malden said, are clearly outlined and labeled within the bigger report. But I wanted to really focus on the key observations and recommendations from said report. This is definitely not the entirety of the observations and recommendations, but these are the ones that I thought were perhaps the most important observations and recommendations. The first one, as you can see, I broke it up between people, processes, and product. The first one under people is the lack of transfer of knowledge from CFO to the other finance department staff. That lack of transfer of knowledge definitely could lead to the finance department staff being a little bit slower to answer certain requests because they were not privy to the way those things were done. The recommendation there is, of course, let's start creating work instructions, have a clear succession plan, and implement cross-training. And then make sure that you guys hire a strong CFO immediately. Also, with this lack of transfer of knowledge, with the CFO holding so many things close to the vest, you also want to look and ensure that there were no indications of fraud or anything like that. I think that combined with the financial stability areas, you always want to check for fraud and make sure that that was not an issue. The small size of the department does not allow for proper segregation of duties. Certainly because of your small size, there are going to be some segregation of duties issues just because you're not big enough to have everyone do things kind of separately, but you want to make sure that you don't have any clear segregation of duties issues. And by that, I mean, you don't have someone that has the ability to create a vendor in the system, receive the product in, and then cut themselves a check. So we want to create a segregation of duties matrix to determine the appropriateness of the current work assignments and make sure there are no major conflicts. Looking at the processes, lack of complete and defined policies and procedures. Accounting does currently have policies and procedures in place, but some of those were not complete or needed to be updated with some further recommendations and documents there. And also based off best practices, I will suggest some other policies and procedures to implement to strengthen your internal controls. Currently, all your vendors are paid via check, which is a very inefficient process and could add up to 60% of extra costs to your finances. So really, you want to transfer all your vendors to ACH as quickly as you can. Those that will want to get transferred to ACH. Lack of financial stability. Part of the reason that I am here tasked with doing this assessment is because Ms. Malden has immediately started assessing the current financial situation. Develop a plan to figure out how to increase financial stability.
Dr. Michael O'Halloran.
Join the meeting.
And then you want to allow JTI to conduct a fraud review. Again, just to ensure that everything's on the up and up. Make sure that combined with this or making sure that the lack of financial stability is not due to any type of fraud. Also, in looking at the grants and the grants funding that has come in, it was pretty evident that you guys may not be going after all your potential grants that are available. So you want to create a position dedicated to grants administration and then align this position to work with JTA's grants manager to help fully set up that position and ensure that you guys are going after all of the potential grants that are available to you. Product-wise, Munis, your financial system does not produce financial statements. Your financial statements are created manually, which of course could lead to more errors in your financial statements. So you want to determine if this capability is available within Munis, and if it's not, determine if there is another system that could work in conjunction with Munis in order to produce these financial statements. And then lack of overall financial transparency. I just think from reviewing past board meetings, maybe the clear financial transparency has not always been there, but just want to ensure that everyone at CAT, from staff members all the way up to the board members, are fully aware of what your financial position is at any given point in time. And you guys, as the board members, should be regularly updated on where you are financially. Steps forward, I think you could benefit from utilizing the knowledge of JTI in the following areas. again, performing the fraud review, ensuring that audit findings have been properly mitigated. I could not find where this was kept. I believe the prior CFO kept track of all the audit findings, but you just want to ensure that all those corrective actions have been put in place so that you don't get a repeat finding. Assist the new grants administrator, assist with recommendations to your transit asset management plan, and streamline the financial processes. And then make sure you're providing regular updates and on the status of these recommendations. And that's really all I have today. Are there any questions for me about this report or anything that I went over?
I don't have a question for you, but I will have one for Ms. Malden.
Yes, ma'am.
I realize these are just recommendations, but if there's something we're seriously looking at, I'm hoping that you have a financial, the cost factored in when it comes to the full board.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. We will have the full cost factored in. This was just the initial assessment that we've just received over the weekend, and we didn't want to delay sharing the information with the board. But when we do go back before the board, we'll have the financials to go along with it.
And Ms. Dukes, and again, my question would be about the grant administrator. Are you recommending a full-time position for that?
And so a full-time position, and I think a grant, if one hasn't already been appointed, someone that would be dedicated to just the grants administrator role. And that would entail going after the different grant funding and then also administering the grants when you're awarded the grant.
Now, I understand the function, but my question is, are you recommending a full-time position for that person?
Yes, it should be a full-time position.
And Ms. Malden, again, that I would question only because, they should have some other duties and responsibilities, or someone who's already in position, can do that, I guess 50% of the time or whatever. So that's just my thought process.
Well, thank you.
Writing grants doesn't take all day, every day.
Well, actually, Dr. Robinson, well, thank you for your feedback. And I would actually say, first of all, one, we have already appointed a grant administrator in Brenda Dice. She had already been working with that. I'm not sure if you recall, but I have an extensive background in grants administration and grant writing. And actually in a transit agency of this size, grant administration would be a full-time position. And there is actually enough for a grant writer to do in an agency this size on a full-time basis. As you heard, this was an assessment that I actually made early on. And basically the assessment we've received from JTI validated those initial inclinations. There is a lot of money that we have not even tapped into, that we have not been able to because we don't have a full-time person. And there's additional work that needs to be done on the compliance side of that as well. So there actually is a need for a full-time person in that position. And we have already appointed someone to start to fill those roles. You've already seen the fruits of that labor with the CARES Act funding that we were able to receive in record time, because just like I was calling on one end, Ms. Dice was on the other end of that chain, making her calls to FTA continuously as well. So the position has already started to pay dividends already. And I'm really looking forward to the great things that she's going to do in that role for the agency.
Mr. Leggett, do you have any questions? You muted.
Unmute.
Hi, it's Dr. Holleran. Just let you know I'm here.
Okay. Ms. Dukes, you said that by moving away from paper checks, that would save us 60% of the funds that we're putting out right now?
Yeah, I was just giving a general term, a general fact, which is that it usually can add up to 60% of costs, because you've got to think about what it takes to produce a manual check, the hours that it takes, the actual cost of the envelopes, the postage, et cetera.
Okay. That's my only question. I was just concerned about that because if we still writing out checks, I know everything is going to electronic now. We're just basically sending out everything electronically, and we're the only people that might be still writing checks. I was just concerned about that.
All right, Dr. O'Halloran?
Yeah, am I still on? I don't know if it muted me back out.
No, we can hear you fine.
Okay, I agree. Electronic checks, much better idea. We can do direct deposit. A lot of other options open up under that. And generally in a larger corporation with over 50 employees, it's cheaper to do electronic payroll than it is to do it manually. So I agree, that's a good change.
All right, any other comments from Mrs. Hughes or Ms. Malden? Either you ladies have any further comments for us?
No, I don't have any further comments. Thank you for taking in this information. And again, the full comprehensive report will be coming to you this afternoon at the conclusion of all the committee meetings. And so we really look forward to hearing your further insight and comments regarding the extensive report. We appreciate JTI, of course, is the consulting arm of the Jacksonville Transit Authority. So, I mean, I can honestly say that authority has had to go through some very transformative times as well. So I thought what better agency to come in and advise us as we go through this transformational time on our end. So thanks to Nat Ford, the CEO of Jacksonville, as well as Keisha Dukes, the Assistant Vice President, for her efforts. And so we will continue to keep the board updated as we progress through the subsequent studies and whatnot.
Ms. Dukes, again, for this committee, thank you for your service and for your recommendations and for the work that you did. We appreciate it.
And thank you. And I appreciated working with everyone at CAT. Everybody's very nice and very helpful. So thank you.
All right. You said that was the second part, Ms. Malden. We want to move on to the second part of your financial services assessment.
Correct. It's the financial performance review, which will be given by Ms. Gloria Royal.
Good afternoon. We just want to give a brief update of our August 2020 financials. Okay, if we can move to the second slide, please, Beverly, there. First of all, we would like to start off with our revenues and expenditures. Our total revenues for the month ending August 31st, 2020 are $1,986,581,000. The revenues are $277,628 below the budget. We are currently still not accepting fares on our bus. We are operating fare free, so that actually caused us to have a decrease in our budgeted August revenues. Total expenditures for the month are $1,977,405. This is $319,251 less than budgeted amount of, and our budgeted amount was $2,296,656 for the period of August. Revenues over expenditures for this period is $3,423,000, and year-to-date under budget $187,444. Next slide, please. This is our revenue by source for the month of August. As you can see, our largest contributor, I think we lost. I hear someone saying CARES Act. Well, however, remember we reported last month that our CARES Act was actually recorded in the month of June, which was the final period of fiscal year 2020. According to our pie chart, and I do apologize for not having the total amounts there, but our largest contributor, which is that gold section is Chatham County Transit District. Chatham County Transit District represents about 54.98% of funding received. The next largest contributor would be the paratransit, which is 21.14. The next would be the federal grants. The federal grants is in the darker blue, which is 20% of the revenue received. Our other funding sources is about 3% each. The other funding sources that we have are basically revenue, which did not collect any in the month of August. We also have small items such as non-transit items. Say if we have material that is recyclable that we may receive income from, that would also fall into that category. When we were issuing half-fare ID, there was a fee for the half-fare ID that also would go into that non-transit bucket. So those revenues total less than 3%. So as I stated, our overall largest contributor for revenue is transit taxes. Next slide, please. Our expense by category. The salaries and wages, of course, is our largest expense for our agency. Our salary and wages consist of 46% of our expenses and benefits 19%. The other expenses that we have, which are maintenance, repairs, supplies, fuel, service, utilities, and insurance, equals the remaining 35%. We also have employer benefits, which is about 19%. Next slide. Our projected cash versus actual cash. For the months of July and August, we are reporting here on the graph actual numbers. Our actual July cash, 1,729,161, and our August numbers, 4,957,560,000. Historically, the agency has its largest tax receivable months, the month of June and the month of December. As we know that these are the 2 months, whereas the taxes are collected either in November and distributed to CAT in December, or collected in the month of May and distributed to CAT in the month of June. Providing no unforeseen circumstances occurring that may create additional expenses, the agency's projected August 31st, 2020 ending balance for June 30th, 2020 is $4,741,727. That would be our year-end total at June 30th, if we stay on task. Our last slide. Next slide, please. One back. This is just a brief timeline overview of the activity that occurred in the month of August. Of course, we got our CARES Act grant approved, which is August 11th. We requested the funds on the 14th of August. Our funds was received on the 17th of August. We were able to pay down our line of credit of 1.5 on the 18th of August. We transferred to our Georgia Fund investment account $4 million on August 19th. As of August 31st, our ending operating cash balance is $4,957,560. This concludes our financial update for August. Are there any questions, please?
I wish everybody who's not talking, can you mute your mic, please? There's a lot of background noises.
Yeah, I'm in the car. That may be partly from me, but I had two quick questions and I'll mute myself again.
Okay, please.
Gloria, nice report. I'm listening on the phone, so if you can understand the financial while you're just listening to it, it's pretty well done. How much is the total in the Georgia fund? It's just that 4 million. We wiped out all the rest during COVID.
All right. Well, yes, sir. We did draw down all of the funds from for the COVID expenses prior to COVID. And yes, it's 4 million plus there was the interest that was remaining in the account prior to us putting the 4 million, which was like $15,000. That was interest.
Okay, well, that's a good start. I think the FTA would like to see 3 months, which for us is about, I guess, 6.3 million. Actually, that was one question. So no, I didn't have two, just the one. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Is there any indication that there'll be more money coming from the federal government through as a result of COVID? Have we heard anything from any of our lobbyists or anybody?
We actually have had some one-on-one meetings with our congressional representatives over the last 2 weeks. Of course, no promises were made, but we certainly made our case for why additional CARES funding would be a great thing for our agency. Our congressional reps continue to be supportive of the work that we're doing at CAT, and they have assured us that they will do their very best to ensure that we can, if there is a funding package passed, that we will be able to get our fair share. I am also participating in a press conference tomorrow with the American Public Transportation Association with regard to COVID. And it was during that press conference, we will not only be talking about what we're doing as an agency to combat COVID and ensure that people know that we have safe service. We will also be again making the case for why it is important that our congressional representatives support public transportation. And of course, I'll be making the case on behalf of CAT here in Chatham County.
All right. The other question that I had was, I know we're doing fare free for our buses. What about our ferries? Is the ferry fare free as well, or do we charge?
Yes, ma'am. The ferries actually have always been fare free, and so we have continued that as well. So, and if I may add, I actually was on the ferry this weekend, and it is still being very, very heavily utilized. It was very crowded. So social distancing, of course, still being observed, but it was very, very well used over the weekend.
Okay. All right, Mr. Leggett, any questions?
You guys asked all the questions. Y'all had all the good ones.
Dr. Halloran, you had any more?
More like a comment question kind of thing. Have we decided, or are we going to be deciding when we start collecting fares again? I realize it's going to be a tough transition, but I know Atlanta has started on MARTA this week collecting again. And does the city, I don't know if Dietrich has any clue on this, when they plan to restart the shuttles? Did I miss that maybe?
Dr. Robinson, that's actually a part of the next report. And so whenever you're ready.
I don't have the agenda. I'm sorry. I'm just, when it hits my head, I bring it up. But thank you. All right, I'll mute myself again.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Royal.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Operational planning updates, number 3.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. So of course, as you know, we have been looking closely at our operations during this time with 2 drivers. One, of course, being COVID-19, and the second driver, of course, is our financial position. And so as a result, we are actually shifting the dialogue more so from service reduction to service optimization as a result of those 2 driving factors. And so we are actually, first of all, I'm happy to report that we're expecting our operator compartments to be in place by October 26th. Steve Boatwright and the maintenance team, they've been in contact with Gillick, our bus operator, our bus manufacturer rather, and we're expecting to have those in place by October 26th. Once we're able to have those in place, we'll be cheerfully moving ahead with recommending that we reinstate fares. The recommendation from the staff will be to reinstate fares effective November 1st of this year. So if all goes well, we'd like to reinstate fares November 1st. Technically, November 2nd. We will be making the modifications, and I'll explain why technically in a minute. We'll be making the service modifications effective November 1st as well. One of the service modifications, of course, would be a temporary suspension of Sunday service, which is why I said technically November 2nd. It's November 1st falls on a Sunday. That temporary suspension of service, of course, as you know, a lot of churches have not gone back into in-person services. Alderman Leggett, we do know that we have some ridership with the hospital, and we do recognize that. But with COVID continuing to rear its ugly head, we believe that this community and this agency could benefit from what I'd like to call a reset day, a day where we do even deeper cleaning of our buses, catch up in terms of mechanical things that need to be fixed and all of that. And so we're looking to have a hard reset day at the beginning of every week where maintenance is still working, but operations cease in terms of servicing routes. And so we're also looking to implement what we call the Holiday Plus schedule, which would take many of our routes to the holiday levels of service, but then we would be adding service to the number 14 and several other routes. As you know, we really strive to have a close partnership with our union. And right now, because of our limited seating capacity, we rely on our operators to be our eyes and ears in terms of what routes need additional service. And so the union, led by the union leadership, we received a list of some of our higher performing routes, and we're actually putting additional service to meet those needs out on the street. We're very fortunate at CAT. Our ridership is at higher levels than a lot of other agencies enjoy across the country. And so we don't want to undermine that by severely cutting our service. We're going to try to do other things that we can do to try to balance things out in terms of our financial standing. And so we'd like to implement those changes. Also the 100X, I'll add that in terms of the reduction of that route as well. We're looking to put all of that in place starting November 1st. So again, just to kind of recap, barriers we're hoping to have in place for the operators by October 26th. Service optimization starts November 1st. Fares, hopefully, if the board will approve, the fares to be reinstated November 1st as well. And that concludes the operational policy portion of the report. I'll entertain any questions that you all may have.
Ms. Malden.
I have one about the Sunday, temporary suspension of Sunday services. Tell me what temporary means.
Well, right now, because a lot of the churches are not, are not in service right now. We're going to basically keep a pulse on the community. We're going to, let them be our eyes and ears. And as the need presents itself, we will look at bringing the Sunday service back. I think but I do believe at a minimum, we're looking at doing this for the remainder of the fiscal year, because we will realize some savings by suspending Sunday service. And we do need that additional savings to bring our budget back in line. So we're kind of doing that to balance the fact that we're having to put even more service on our higher performing routes during the week. So we're trying to strike a balance. So my initial guess would be that we would more than likely do that for the remainder of the fiscal year, but not forever going forward.
Would holiday service be more challenging, or do you want to just go straight to suspending the Sunday service?
Well, holiday service is is what we're proposing for the majority of our routes. But again, Sunday was I guess a better way to go about reducing the service without having to go through the whole hoops of the public meetings, things like that you would normally have, the Title VI requirements. And so because that had already been approved, that's the reason why we went that route. Again, we are going to continue to seek input from the public. We are having a public meeting tomorrow, in fact. And so we will definitely utilize whatever input we get from the public about these changes to inform our future decisions. But we really believe that we're going to do this for the remainder of the fiscal year, and we will be able to make an impact in our budget by doing that. So, and I would add, Alderman Leggett, if there is some feedback that the hospital would like to provide, if you'd like to, we can work together to possibly talk to the officials at the hospital. I'd be interested in talking to the workforce there as well.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to talk about it. Just based on the ridership data that we have right now, that's what we use to inform the decisions in terms of where the most logical place would be for that hard reset.
I think that you already spot on, because I think that the 14, the Abercorn has picked up, being that the majority of the people are starting to move south and they're utilizing the bus services, and now more coming from the south side of Savannah. So you already dead on. I think that the union and the operators already know what's most effective moving forward.
And they gave us an extensive list of higher performing routes. And so right now, because again, we can't dispatch our planning staff on the buses the way that we might ordinarily do, because we're really trying to allocate as much space as possible for our customers. So, but they gave us a list, and we're actually using that to inform our decisions and our recommendations.
Good job, union. That's all I have.
Dr. Halloran? Dr. Halloran? Now we're talking from now until June of 2021.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I came back on. I'm sorry. I have to mute out and then go back when you ask me a question.
Do you have any questions on the operational planning updates?
The only thing I didn't hear is when the city of Savannah is due to restart shuttle service.
Well,
do we have any idea?
We do not have.
And that's the question I'll be raising with the mayor this week, so I can give you guys an update next time we speak, and I should be able to give Ms. Malden an update this week.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think that was it.
We've started those conversations on the planning end as well. We're ready. We're ready. We want it back. And actually, the business community has also been knocking on my door as well. They want the dot back as well.
Okay, I'll give you some information on that this week.
Yeah, I would think tourism would like to see it back as well.
All right. Are there any other questions? Number 4 is budget planning.
Sorry about that. We will put forth, and I think I was looking at the wrong agenda, but okay. So we will be putting forth during my report at the full board meeting a timeline for the budget amending process. And I call it a process because we're actually going to do some internal budget workshops on the inside internally. But then we're also going to engage the board in the budget amendment process and schedule a series of budget workshops for the board. We believe that the process of amending the budget, given the information that we've received regarding our financial outlook, should be a group hug of sorts. It should be something that the board and the staff work through together. And so for that reason, we are going to do this with the process of having meetings before we come to you with our final recommendation for an amended budget. We're looking to have those meetings. And I was gonna say, Ms. Williams, I see that she is on the call. I've actually tasked Ms. Jeray Williams with leading the timeline for that, if she has anything that she'd like to lend to that. But we're looking to have those budget workshop meetings in starting in October, is that correct, Ms. Williams? You're still on mute.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Starting next week.
All right, so more information to come on that, and I will have a visual aid for the governance meeting and the full board meeting as well.
Is that it for that section, Ms. Malden?
That's it for that section.
All right, any questions from any of the committee members, Mr. Leggett or Dr. O'Halloran?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
No, I'm good too. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I do kind of wait a little bit because he is on the phone, so sometimes the connection is delayed a little bit, so.
Yeah, I have to go in and actually go to the keypad and go to the delete the mute, so it's a little bit slow on my end. Sorry about that.
But it's okay, because I'll give you that time. All right, item number 5 is proposed agenda item for September 22nd. We have A through G. Is there anything that needs, everything, well, I'll let Ms. Malden speak to that. Everything looks okay to me. Is there anything that we need to discuss or pull off or?
Okay, well, A and B, of course, are the standard items that we have on the agenda every month from now until we get to some closer sense of normalcy with regard to COVID-19. And so that's what A and B relate to. I'm gonna toss the ball to David Stern to address items C, D, E, F, and then Ms. Patricia Hawkins Moorhead would actually have item G along with David Stearns.
Okay.
So the policies that you're seeing, this is just a continuation of us being staff trying to update CAT's policies and get them in front of the board. So the EEO and the business conduct policy, items C and E, are revisions of existing policies. So in the last committee, the suggestion was to do a red line version, and we were going to kind of see if that works for everyone so that we know which method the board likes, and then we can present the revised policies in that method. The compliance program, item D, is a totally new policy or program at CAT. So I think what we're going to do with that one is present it this month as a read-in, and then look for voting on it next month. That was the suggestion of
Commissioner Jones during the last meeting.
Yeah,
he actually suggested that we have it on the agenda for a reading, since it is brand new, and that we'll put it forward as an action item on the October agenda.
And so that one will be, I think if everyone's fine with that, that's how we would handle the compliance program. So those are the two policies, the revisions of policies, and then the new program, items C, D, and E. And then item F, we're just asking for permission to release an RFP for IT services with a mind towards the November 30th contract extension deadline for the current services we have. So this is just basically, it's not voting on IT services, it's just saying allow us to go put a RFP out, essentially.
Now, the only question I have is about getting these things in our hands so that we can see them prior to a meeting. The same thing with the comprehensive report for the financial service assessment. Mm-hmm. My question again would be, how soon will we have it? I know you can present it as a read first, but will we see before the meeting?
Yes, ma'am, you will. You will actually have those items at the conclusion of the day today.
Okay. Mr. Leggett, any questions?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Dr. Halron?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Patricia, it's on you.
Yes, and I apologize. I actually combined the names of two employees together. And so I apologize. So Miss Patricia Harris Moorhead will handle the last item. I apologize.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone.
No.
Hope y'all are doing well after the long holiday, our last holiday of the summer. I just wanted to mention that the team and I have been working on an update to our media relations policy. And I received a request for a minor change from Mr. Stearns and Ms. Malden, and we've made that change. And that media relations policy will be one of the other items that will be in the packet of materials that Ms. Malden and Ms. Dumas will send out to all of the board members, but so that you all will have it in advance to review. And then when we get ready to ask for action, an action item on it, you all will be able to give us the needed feedback. Now, in this morning's committee meeting, it was suggested, as Mr. Stearns mentioned, that we redline the old policy. I took a look at the old policy, and the older policy was only 2 paragraphs. And we've totally rewritten the new media relations policy. So I'm hoping that maybe I can just combine the two and that you all can clearly see the 2016 date and the old policy and what the new one is. But whatever is decided, we'll be happy to furnish. But I just wanted to share that with you, that you will have a media relations policy coming to you in the other materials that will be shared.
So, Ms. Patricia, so you're saying the entire thing is brand new? So
yes, ma'am. Sometimes it's better for when you're drafting language, once you review what's already there, to basically start from scratch. And we've done that. Like, as I said, the old policy is basically 2 paragraphs and they're not very detailed. And then the updated version is about 2 pages. Easy to read. It's something that not only the communications team, our team, will abide by, but it's a policy for the entire agency, so that they will know when media calls, who gets that call. We address that we are going to be responsible and reply, hopefully by the reporter's deadline. If that's not possible, we will at least pick up the phone that same day and call and say, we don't have the information for you today. It's going to take a little more time, but we will do our best to get it to you as soon as possible. So it's a pretty comprehensive policy. It's something that any successful communications and marketing department should have. An agency our size should have one. And so it was just time to do the update. And so thanks to Mr. Stearns, who's taking the lead on this initiative. He saw that policy, sent it our way several weeks ago and said, Patricia, this is a policy that applies to you all. You all might want to start updating it. So we have done that.
So within the that new policy, how transparent are we going to be with media, depending on the situations, or how transparent are we looking to be when we're putting out information?
Extremely transparent. As a matter of fact, we've also had some discussions about open records requests and how they will be handled. And Ms. Malden and Mr. Stearns, we've decided that the open records request, we're going to do a separate policy for you all. So that will be related, but it will be a standalone open records policy. In addition, on the committee this morning, we had a question about social media. And so it's been my experience too, that with the evolution of social media, usually social media policies need to be standalone as well.
So with social media policy, will you guys rewrite the social media policy as it pertains to employees who use social media, and because each and every employee, including myself, represent CAT as a company, and if we do something on social media, it all reflects back on company. Does that fall underneath the same conversation?
Absolutely. The policy that we have out there right now is comprehensive, but there are also some best practices. And so my plans are for us to also consult with our colleagues in the public transit industry around the country. What's really great about the people who work in our industry is they are happy to share information, and they're happy to let you use certain information to make it your own. And so I've worked on social media policies in the past, and I've reached out to colleagues to see their best practices and compare notes. And so that's probably what we will do when we get ready to tackle the social media policy. And of course, discuss it internally before we bring it to the board. But I assure you, it will be a comprehensive policy. We'll also probably have to have legal review it, just because when I've worked on social policy, media policies in the past, there are some of those areas, where employees might say, this is my personal page and I can put this there on my page during off hours. And so there's some legal ramifications, and we'd have to look at our employee code of conduct, and we will have to draft that social media policy very carefully. So it's probably going to take us some time to get it so that we're all comfortable with it and before we bring it to you. But the media policy was very easy to put together, just because I've worked in this business a long time. Mr. Curl has worked in communications for a very long time. And so the two of us, we basically tackled that media policy and looked at what we had before, and we have got a really great policy for you all. So I'm hoping that when you get it, you'll look at it. And if you have any other questions, just ask those questions. We'll be happy to answer. But I'm hoping that you will say, yeah, this is a pretty good policy. We're being very transparent, and we want to approve it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. O'Halloran?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Number 6 is old business, and the only old business that I have has to do, that I noticed was not on the agenda, was the progress we've made toward the whistleblower policy.
That is actually a part of the compliance program that is up for approval. Well, it's up for reading. The whistleblower policy, and the policy that would be enacted around the whole whistleblower effort or whistleblower service that we have just recently retained, is included in the compliance program that you will be reading this month and prayerfully approving next month.
Okay. All right. Dr. O'Halloran, any old business on your end for this committee? Was that a no?
Not really. The only thing I didn't hear mentioned, is there an RFP going out for legal services?
It was approved on last month's board agenda.
It was.
Okay, that's already gone out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Legg?
It's been released.
You miss a lot of this stuff when you're not in the building often. All right, thanks.
And for our new business, we have voted for a new board chair, and as the board chair, he has the opportunity to make appointments to committees. And he and I and Mr. Duke had a conversation about this particular committee, and he is bringing forward allowing Mr. Legg to become the chairman of this committee. I'll stay on the committee, but Mr. Legg will chair the committee. So I just want to make you guys aware that that's coming soon. Okay. All right, our next meeting dates are September 15th, 2020, which is our governance meeting, and September 22nd is our board meeting. All right, anything else for the order from Mr. Leggett or Dr. O'Halloran?
Ma'am, I appreciate the opportunity and I look forward to serving well.
All right, the time is now 1:55. You did it under an hour. And I consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, make sure you tell Miss Malden what I was laughing at.
I will.
She,
All right.
she told me to stop laughing, but I couldn't help. Just tell her what I was laughing at.
I will, yes, sir. That was a good laugh. I'll let her know.
All right.
Okay, be safe. Hey, Miss Dion. Miss Dion.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
Good. I'm sorry. I was just speaking with Miss Lakakis.
Oh, okay. You took care of that.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Because just that fast, I had already forgot about it. So listen,
Wait, are we still live?